Good day, everyone. In this second part, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a date field that isn't really in an IDEA format. So as we can see here that the date field, generally it wants to be in years, months, day, or something similar to that. You know, with 2 digits for the year, 4 digits for the year, 2 digits for the month, and 2 digits for the day. So we're missing the proper formatting to actually be able to use this properly in IDEA. So I'm going to show you 2 ways how we can format this. One with the equation editor, and the other one using a custom function. My preference generally in scenarios like this is using a custom function, and I'll sort of show you why, and as we go along, and hopefully it'll actually be obvious. So I'm just going to first create a new field. I'm just going to call this IDEA date. And I'm going to make this a virtual date field. Then we'll bring up the equation editor. So I'm going to make this a bit larger. And I've already developed this equation, or actually, the person who sent me this had already developed this. So I'm just going to reuse this. So you can sort of see how it works. And we'll go about explaining it. I figure it'll probably be easier to explain than anything else. So the first function here is character to date. So this is taking a character and changing it to a date. So all this part here is actually taking this date here and reformatting it so we could use the character to date function. So what we're doing is we're turning this function in here so that it has 2 digits for the day with a dash, 2 digits for the M with a dash, and 4 digits for the year. So the first part is the day. So we're using a if here, and what we're doing here is we're seeing, okay, if the length of the first characters, or everything up to the first hyphen here, is only length of 1, then we add on a 0 to it. If not, then we take everything up to the 1. So that is this part here. It gives us the date. Sorry, not the date. It gives us the day. Then we're including the hyphen. Then the next part is we're doing the same thing here. We're using the @split to figure out if the month is actually 1 character. And if it's 1 character, then we're adding on a 0 to it. If not, we're using it. So everything from here to here is related to reformatting the month into 2 digits. And finally here, we are doing the same thing for the for the year. There's extra code here where we're assuming that, okay, the date could be 2 digits, in which case we add on the 20. If not, we use the whole date. So what this will give us is something that will be day dash mm dash YYY, which is this format here. And then using the character to date, we'll take this character, this reformatted character, and turn it into a date. Now, as you can see, one of the problems here is that we are reusing the code over and over again. So it makes it kind of long and verbose. And also, the way it winds through here, it's kind of sometimes hard to read. But it works. So we can try this out. It's a valid equation. And then I just click on OK, and let's see how this works. And here we've got the reformatted field. So now this is actually in a format of a date field. So now you can use any of the usual IDEA functions or analytics on this date field. The second way I'm going to do this is through a custom function. So again, a custom function is through the equation editor. So I'm going to add on another date field. And I'll just call this CF. Again, this will be another date field. But instead of creating this in the equation editor, I'm going to create it as a custom function. So a custom function allows you to use IDEAScript or Python to create functions that will interact directly with your database through virtual fields. So I'm going to do a custom function. So I'm going to click on New. So here I got I can use either a custom function, which would be on IDEAScript, or the Python custom function. In this instance, I'm going to use the IDEAScript one. And this brings me up the editor. I'm just going to make this a bit larger. So first off, I got to give this a function name. And I'm just going to call this date change. Then I got to select the number of parameters. So we get multiple parameters here. In this instance, I only want one parameter, namely that date field. But that date field is in a character format. So we got to select character. And I can add on some help tasks and change the name if I want, but I'm just going to leave it for the defaults for this demonstration. I click on OK. And now I start writing the item. So we also have a way to test the equation. So suppose I want to go in and test the equation. So suppose I want to go in where we want to say, January 6, 2023. So that's going to be our test. First thing I want to do to this is I want to create variables to hold the different parts of the date. So I'm going to create a variable to hold the year, create a variable to hold the month, and create a variable to hold the day. So these are all strings because we want the characters. Because this is basically a character field. So I'm using character variables to hold the different information. Now, if I want to use the year, it's easy enough. I can just use sYear equals 2. So the sYear here, I don't know whether it's going to be 2 characters or 4 characters. So what I'm going to do is sort of the same thing as we did in the equation editor, is I'm going to use the split function. So you may not be aware of this, but the majority of the functions within the equation editor are also available within IDEAScript by replacing the symbol with the I symbol. So basically all functions that were created up to version 9 of IDEA are available. So the split function is one of them. So I can use that. So the iSplit is, first off, I use the variable, so the P1. So this is holding the original date. Then I am looking for the hyphen, and then basically the end. So basically putting 2 double quotes with nothing in between means that it's either the end or the beginning of the variable, depending on how you use it. In this instance, because it's placed there, it means it's to the end. And as there's 2 hyphens there, I'm saying I start from the second one going to the end. And we can check if that works by basically doing date change. So the name of the function equals to the sYear. And then if I go click on test, it gives me 2023. Now, the next thing I want to do is what happens if it's only 23. So in that instance, then I just do sYear. Oh, sorry, I'm going to do an if. If length sYear. So if the length is equal to only 2 characters, then it is equal to, I want to add on 20 plus the year. So if I try that, so it gives me 2023, which is the one I want. So that's the first one. Now let's do the month. Oops. And again here, I'm going to use the iSplit. And this time, I'm going to use, instead of the empty quotes, I'm going to use hyphen hyphen and a 1. So what this means is I'm splitting everything between the first hyphen and the second hyphen. So the 1 means it's the first one. And again here, I'm going to just check and see. Whoops. Do the length here. Equals 1. Then we add on a 0. Whoops. To the month. And now if I try this, let's see what we get. 01. Perfect. And the final one is the day. And the day, we can do this a bit differently. I'm going to do this a bit differently. So instead of using, because the day is always the first characters, I can use a left. And I can say, okay, I want everything left, starting from the first character. And then I'm going to locate the first time that the hyphen shows up. And how I do that is a function called inString. And I'm going to say I want this as the first character. Oops. And actually this is not a 1. I just realized this is P1. So this is the variable that we'll be looking at. So here I'm going to be looking at the starting from the first character in the variable P1 with the hyphen. And I'm going to have to subtract 1. Reason being is that here it's the second character, but I only want 1. So I have to subtract 1 in that instance. And then again, I just do the length again. Equals 1. Then sday equals, oops. And now we can try this out. Make sure the day's working right. And so it is. And then it's just a matter of putting it together. So what we want is we want the year plus the month plus the day. And we test that out. So it's giving me the proper format. So I'm still returning a character field, but now I can use the character to date function within the equation editor. And also I'm going to add the category here. I'm going to add this as a date time. So here, let me go. I can go and validate, so there's no errors. I'll save it. I'll exit out of this here. I'll exit out of the custom functions. So now if I go into custom functions under date time, we can see we got the date change here. So I'll use that. And I'm using that on the date. And I'm going to wrap this around the, or actually use the character to date. And I'll just show the format as YYYY MMDD to change it to a date field. And the validations is okay. I click on this and it processes the dialog. And now you can see that the custom function gives you the same result as the equation editor. For me, it's just the custom functions. When the equations are a bit more complicated, I prefer custom functions because I find they're a bit more readable. Plus also for more advanced items, you can also use loops in there. And now with the addition of being able to create Python custom functions, you also have access to all the Python commands. So that opens up a whole bunch of other functionality that you can do within the equation editor and custom functions. Thanks.